All right, Treasury Secretary and the U.S. Trade Representative met with reporters just about an hour ago. They warned about the potential impact of new trade rules from China, a plan they say could give Beijing complete control over the global economy. Now, all this as President Trump has threatened new tariffs and plans to meet with Xi Jinping later this month. Listen.
China's new measures include a rule saying that any product of which more than 0.1% of minerals consist of minerals mined or processed in China, one must seek approval from the Chinese government before trading it. Since many important semiconductors, for example, have these critical minerals, and semiconductors are in nearly everything, this rule gives China control over basically the entire global economy and the technology supply chain. This will impact artificial intelligence systems and high-tech products, but even regular consumer items like cars, smartphones, and potentially even household appliances could be affected.
All right, joining me now in Studio 55 is CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. What's up?
Hey there.
So, what do you think the average consumer should take away from what we just heard?
So, I think when you listen to that, you hear a lot of jargon and things like rare earth resources. But to put it into general consumer terms, what he's saying at the base level is correct. China has over 70% of these things called rare earth resources, and they impact everything from cars and phones, just really very important things that you and I buy or use every day. And so when you have a country that has control of something that is very important for these other things that impact our daily lives, they have a lot of leverage when it comes to this trade relationship. And so I think that's something that consumers should be thinking about. I was also listening to more of that speech, and you heard from Bessent say, look, I don't care what's going on with the markets. Even if there's a lot of volatility, we're not going to let that bully us, essentially, into making a mistake in this relationship with China. They want to make sure that the U.S. gets the best deal. So what I take from this is this tit for tat with China could go on for quite some time because the U.S. doesn't want to back down on something that's so important.
You know, this morning on CBS Mornings, we had Michael Lewis on the show. He's written about, obviously, the housing bubble. He's going back to 1989 when he wrote Liar's Poker about, greed and glory on Wall Street. He told us this morning that there is, in his mind, a bubble that has been slowly building and that there will be some type of a market crash. He doesn't know where, and he doesn't know what the underlying factors are. In other words, there's something out there. We don't know what it is yet. But to hear, when you hear Bessent say that they're not going to be bullied by the stock market, I mean, we're supposed to be getting new data on the economy this week. We're supposed to be hearing, there were talks of another rate cut, which might not happen now. I mean, how do you read the tea leaves when you hear comments like that, and also from people who are watching the market sort of warily?
Whenever I hear comments like that, I always like to take a breath and not look at my portfolio or anything like that, because that creates more anxiety. But I also juxtapose that with what we heard from Fed Chair Powell yesterday. He spoke, and he didn't say that interest rate cuts at the end of this month are off the table, because you're right. We were actually supposed to get inflation data today. You and I would normally be talking about the consumer price index. They don't have that data, but it did seem like they were still open to interest rate cuts. So I don't want to have folks at home who are worried about their mortgages or their car loans. Like, that still might be coming. But generally, you're right. There has been a lot of talk that there is this bubble booming, especially in the AI stocks, when you see these really big valuations for companies that haven't yet really figured out how to make money from AI. They're pouring a lot of money into this. And so I think generally what I think is there are going to be winners and losers, maybe not an entire bubble that burst, but some companies that really just outpass a lot of others, and then some companies that, you sort of see that it was a bubble for them particularly.
Well, maybe AI's fortunes will be changing. I don't know if you saw my talk at the table on CBS Mornings. Sam Altman has indicated that ChatGPT will now allow erotica on ChatGPT. In other words, you're going to be able to get spicy and frisky with whoever your ChatGPT, whoever you're prompting. So we all know how much people everywhere love erotica. So maybe,
I mean, it's one way to make money. Have engagement.
Exactly. I wonder what those prompts are like. Kelly O'Grady, always good to have you. Thank you very much, my friend.